The night was silent except for the cold wind moving through the empty street. The little town was almost asleep, houses dark, and only a few lamps gave a weak yellow light. Inside a small wooden house at the edge of the town, a man named Daniel sat near his fire. He was tired from a long day of work. His life was quiet, normal, nothing special. He never expected anything strange to happen in such a simple place. But then he heard it. At first it was soft, almost like the wind itself, a weak sound, a mix between a knock and a cry. Daniel froze, his ears sharpened, and again he heard it. 3 slow knocks, followed by the faint sound of someone sobbing. He stood, confused. Who would come at this hour? He walked to the door slowly, his hand brushing the old wooden handle. His heart was suddenly beating faster. The air outside felt heavy, almost warning him not to open. But Daniel was not the type to ignore someone in need. He pulled the door open and his breath caught in his chest. There, standing in the dim light, was not a normal woman. She was alien, her skin pale with a faint silver glow, her eyes large and filled with tears. Her body was thin, weak, shaking as if she had not eaten in days. And in her arms, wrapped in torn cloth, was a tiny baby. The baby cried weakly, its sound breaking the silence of the night. The alien mother looked up at Daniel with eyes full of desperation. Her lips trembled as she whispered in broken words, "Save my child." And then she collapsed. Daniel quickly caught her before she hit the ground. The baby nearly slipped, but he held them both. His mind raced. What was happening? Why was an alien mother at his door, carrying a starving baby in the middle of the night? He carried them inside and laid the mother gently on the floor near the fire. The baby was still crying, its small hands reaching. Daniel had no idea how to calm it. He quickly searched his kitchen, pouring warm milk into a small cup. He dipped a clean cloth into it and let the baby suckle softly. The crying slowed and the baby's eyes closed halfway, still weak but calmer. Daniel turned to the mother. She was breathing, but faintly. Her clothes were dirty, torn, and her body showed signs of hunger. It was clear she had been running, hiding, for a long time. For a moment, Daniel just stood there, confused. He had heard rumors in the town, whispers, of alien refugees who had no place to go. Many said they were dangerous, untrustworthy. But here, before his eyes, was no threat, only a helpless mother and her child. As the firelight touched the baby's skin, Daniel noticed something strange. Tiny glowing marks ran along its arm, faint patterns like stars in the night sky. They shimmered softly, almost alive. Daniel reached out carefully, and the baby wrapped its tiny fingers around his, holding tightly. A sudden warmth spread through him, as if the child trusted him completely. The mother stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She looked at Daniel, fear and shame mixing in her gaze. She tried to sit up, whispering again, I wanted to leave him. Your door. He live, I go." Her words cut Daniel deeply. She had not come for herself. She had only wanted her child to survive, even if it meant she would die. Daniel shook his head. "No. You're staying here. Both of you," he said firmly. "You don't leave your baby, not like this. You're safe here." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She wanted to argue, but her strength was gone. She laid back down, whispering softly, "Thank you, human." Before her eyes closed again, the baby slept in Daniel's arms, still holding his finger, breathing softly. Daniel looked at them both, knowing his life had changed in one single night. But outside, in the darkness, the wind carried. More than just cold air, unknown eyes watched from the shadows. A faint whisper moved through the night, carried to unseen ears. "The fugitive has been found." Morning sunlight entered Daniel's small wooden house, warm and soft. The fire had burned low through the night, but its glow still kept the room from freezing. Daniel sat awake, the baby wrapped in a clean blanket on his lap. He had not slept. Every few minutes he checked the baby's breathing, afraid it would stop. The alien mother was still lying near the fire, Her chest rose and fell slowly, her face pale, but she was alive. Daniel watched her, thinking how close she had been to death when she collapsed at his door. When the baby stirred and cried, Daniel gently rocked it. He had never cared for a child before, and yet it felt natural. The baby's glowing marks still faintly shimmered. Under its skin, strange and beautiful, he whispered, "You're safe now, little one," though he had no idea what dangers might follow. Hours later, the mother opened her eyes. Her gaze darted quickly around the room, panic flashing across her face. Then she saw her child in Daniel's arms, fed and wrapped warmly. Her lips trembled and her body relaxed. Tears formed in her eyes. "You kept him safe," she whispered, her voice thin. Daniel nodded. "You both need food and rest. Don't speak too much. You're safe here." But she shook her head weakly. "No one's safe. Not me. Not him." Her eyes fell to the glowing marks on the baby's arm. "They will hunt us if they find out you helped you die too." Daniel frowned. "Why? What do they want from a starving mother and a child?" She closed her eyes tightly, pain filling her face. After a long pause, she said, "My people ruled once long ago, now we are hated. Our children marked by stars, seen as cursed lords fear us, so they kill us before we grow." Daniel's stomach tightened. He looked at the small child, peaceful and innocent in his arms. To think that powerful lords feared even this baby. It was madness, cruelty beyond words. The mother tried to sit, but she was too weak. She almost fell again until Daniel helped her. "You need food," he said, fetching bread, soup, and a jug of water. He guided her hand to the bowl. She hesitated before tasting it, as if she was not used to kindness. Her eyes widened. She ate slowly, but every bite showed how starved she truly was. She whispered between bites, "I only wanted him to live. So I came here, humans. Sometimes help. My people said maybe human will care when no one else does." Daniel stayed silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "You thought you would leave him and go, die alone?" Her tears dropped onto the wooden floor. "Yes. It was the only way. He would live if human raised him." Daniel shook his head firmly. "You're wrong. A child needs his mother too. You're not leaving him again. Not while I'm alive." She looked at him with wide eyes, as if she could not believe a stranger would say such words. Her lips formed a weak smile, her first since she arrived. The baby made a soft sound, tiny hands reaching out. Not to the mother, but to Daniel. The little fingers gripped his shirt as if refusing to let go. The mother noticed, and her heart filled with both sadness and relief. "He already trusts you," she whispered. "He feels safe with you." Daniel looked down at the baby, and something inside him shifted. He had always lived alone, never thought about family, never thought about children. But now, holding this small life, he felt a responsibility heavier than anything he had known before. The day passed slowly. Daniel gave them both as much care as he could. The mother regained a little strength, able to walk a few steps. She told him her name, Lyra, and her child's name, Kale. Daniel repeated the names, making sure to remember. They no longer felt like strangers in his home. But safety was an illusion. Outside, the world was dangerous. Lyra kept glancing toward the window, fear never leaving. Her eyes, Daniel asked why, but she stayed quiet. Finally, as the sun set, she whispered, "They will look for us. They always do." That night, after Lyra and Kale had fallen asleep, Daniel sat by the fire again, his mind heavy. He knew the choice he had made. By taking them in, he had stepped into a storm much bigger than his quiet life. He could already feel the shadows moving closer, and he was right. In the dark street outside, two tall figures stood hidden, their armor shining faintly under the moonlight. One of them raised a strange device, scanning the houses. When it beeped softly, both figures turned their heads toward Daniel's home. The taller one hissed, "The fugitive is inside." The other nodded. "We report at dawn. The lords will be pleased." Daniel, unaware of the watchers outside, held Cale close as the baby stirred in his sleep. He whispered, "I won't let anyone take you." The firelight flickered on his face, his eyes firm, and outside the hunters waited for morning. The night passed slowly and Daniel barely closed his eyes. Every time the wind shook the wooden walls, he thought someone was at the door. Every creak of the floor made him grip the chair tighter. Lyra and Cale were sleeping near the fire, safe for now, but Daniel's mind would not rest. At dawn, he stepped outside to fetch water from the well. The morning was quiet, but he felt watched. His eyes scanned the street, empty, but the silence felt heavy. He carried the bucket back inside, locking the door quickly. When Lyra woke, she noticed the tension in his face. Her first words were soft but filled with fear. "They were here, weren't they?" Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" She pulled the blanket tighter around her thin shoulders. Her voice shook as she explained. "The Lord sent hunters. They never stop until they find us. We leave scent, trace. They follow, always follow." Daniel sat down across from her, Cale sleeping in his arms. The baby's glowing marks pulsed faintly like a heartbeat of light. He asked, "Why are they after you? You said your people used to rule, but why a baby?" Lyra closed her eyes, pain written across her face. "Because he is marked, the stars chose him. They fear the star-marked children will rise one day, so they kill us when we are weak, before we can stand." Daniel felt anger rise in him. "That's madness. He's just a child. How can they be afraid of this little one?" She looked at him, her voice bitter. "Because they know a star-marked grows fast, learns fast, stronger than others. They fear what he might become." She touched Cale's tiny hand, tears filling her eyes. "But he is only my son to me. Not a weapon, not a threat, just my son." For a moment the room was quiet, only the sound of the baby's soft breathing. Daniel felt the weight of her words. He had lived in peace, not knowing such cruelty existed. But now, it was at his door. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. Boots on stone. Faint but clear. Daniel stood quickly, motioning for silence. He moved to the window and peeked outside. Two armored figures walked slowly down the street, scanning doors and windows. One carried a strange device glowing faint green. "They're searching," Daniel whispered. His heart pounded. He turned to Lyra. "Hide, quickly." Lyra grabbed Kyle and hurried to the basement hatch Daniel pointed out. She moved silently despite her weakness. Daniel closed the hatch, covering it with a rug just as heavy knocks hit the front door. The sound echoed through the house. "Open!" a rough voice demanded. "By order of the lords, we search this home." Daniel swallowed hard. His mind raced. He could not fight them, but he could not betray Lyra and Cale either. He opened the door slowly, forcing a calm voice. "What's this about?" The taller guard stepped forward, visor gleaming. "A fugitive. Alien mother was seen nearby carrying a child. We have orders to capture her. Have you seen anything?" Daniel shook his head firmly. "I haven't seen anyone strange." The guard narrowed his eyes, the device in his hand flickering. He stepped inside without asking, scanning the small room. Daniel's fists clenched, but he forced himself to stay still. The other guard checked corners, kicking furniture aside. For a terrifying moment, the device beeped softly, pointing toward the basement. Daniel's chest tightened, sweat forming on his neck. But before they could move, Daniel stepped forward, blocking the way. "What's this, searching my home like criminals?" he demanded, raising his voice. "This is human territory. You have no right without proof." The guards paused. One hissed, "Careful, human. Your kind is tolerated here, nothing more. Do not stand in the way of the lords." Daniel stared back without flinching. "Then bring the Lord himself. Until then, get out." The two aliens exchanged looks. Their orders were strict, but causing open trouble in human areas could start conflict. After a tense moment, the taller one growled, "This isn't over." They turned and left, their heavy boots thudding against the street stones. Daniel shut the door fast, leaning against it. His heart raced, his hands shook. He waited until their steps faded completely before rushing to the basement. He pulled the hatch open, Lyra and Cale were there, eyes wide with fear. "They're gone," Daniel whispered. "For now." Lyra's hands trembled as she held her child close. Her voice broke. "You risked your life. For us." Daniel sat on the floor, exhausted. "I couldn't let them take you." His eyes hardened. "But they'll be back, won't they?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes. They always come back." Daniel looked at Cale, the tiny glowing child, who had already changed his life. He knew the hunters would not stop. And for the first time, he admitted to himself that his quiet life was over. He had stepped into a fight he could not escape. And outside, hidden in the shadows, the hunters whispered into their comms, "The human lies. They are here. We will return with more." The hunt had only just begun. The morning after the search, Daniel's house felt heavier than ever. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the sound of Cale's soft breathing. Lyra sat near the fire, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her body trembled even when the room was warm. Fear clung to her like a shadow that would not leave. Daniel paced the room, his mind turning again and again. He had driven the guards away with words last night, but he knew it would not last. "They'll be back," he muttered under his breath. "And next time, they won't leave so easily." Lyra lifted her eyes, her voice thin. "I should go. If I leave, they will not come here. Again, you will be safe. He will be safe." She looked at her child, kissing his tiny head. "I can run. They want me, not him." Daniel stopped pacing, his face hard. "Don't say that. If you run, you'll die. And they will take him anyway. You saw it. They scan everything. They don't give up. They'll keep coming until they have both of you." Her lips trembled. "Then what can we do?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He didn't know himself. He only knew one thing. He would not let them take the baby or his mother. Not while he was alive. That afternoon, Daniel went outside to gather wood. His eyes kept sweeping the street. The town looked normal. Children playing, merchants shouting at their stalls, but Daniel noticed small changes. A group of strangers stood at a corner, their clothes neat but their eyes cold. They watched him too closely. Their hands rested too easily on hidden weapons. Daniel carried the wood back quickly, locking the door behind him. "They're watching the town now," he said to Lyra. "More of them, not just two." Her face grew pale. "Hunters," she whispered. "They never move alone for long when they come in groups. Someone always dies." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked around his small house. It was no fortress. The walls were thin, the doors weak. Against armored hunters it would never hold. Yet he refused to hand her over. He refused to hand Cale. For the hours dragged and the sun began to set. Daniel forced himself to act normal. He cooked soup, fed Lyra, rocked Cale to sleep, but his ears caught every sound outside, every step, every laugh, every clang of armor. His hands shook each time he thought of what might come through his door, and then it came, a sudden knock, loud, hard. Shaking the wood, Daniel froze. His heart pounded. He moved slowly toward the door. "Daniel," a neighbor's voice called. "Open, quickly." Daniel unlocked the door only to see his neighbor Mark, sweating and afraid. "They're asking questions," Mark whispered. "The hunters, they're asking about you, about strangers in your house. I tried to lie, but they don't believe me. You need to get out before they come." Daniel's blood went cold behind Mark. At the far end of the street, figures in armor were gathering, their glowing devices flashing in their hands. They were coming. He shut the door fast and turned to Lyra. "We don't have time. They're on their way." Lyra stood, her legs trembling. "Then let me go, please, Daniel. If they find me here, they will kill you too. I can run, I can lead them away." Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice rose, firm and unshakable. "No. I told you already, you're not leaving. Not him. Not you. If they want you, they'll have to go through me." Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to argue, but his tone silenced her. She looked at Cale in her arms, then at Daniel, and for the first time she believed he truly meant it. The sound of boots thundered, Outside, sharp commands echoing through the street. Daniel rushed to the basement hatch. "Go down," he told her. "Hide there and stay silent. I'll handle them." Lyra hesitated, but the look in his eyes gave her no choice. She climbed, down with Cale pulling the rug back over the hatch just as fists pounded at the door. "Human," a voice roared. "Open this door, or we break it down." Daniel stood in the middle of his small home. His heart hammered, his hands clenched, he knew what was at stake. The knocking grew louder, wood cracking under the force, and then with one final crash, the door burst open. Hunters stormed inside, armor shining in the firelight. Their glowing visors swept the room. Weapons drawn, Daniel stood his ground, his voice steady even as fear burned inside him. "You're not welcome here." The tallest hunter stepped forward, his weapon aimed, directly at Daniel. "Where is the woman? Where is the star-marked child?" Daniel's silence was his answer. His body stood like a wall between them and the basement. The hunter's visor glowed brighter. "Move aside, human, or die where you stand." Daniel's heart pounded. Sweat ran down his back, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Then kill me, because you're not taking them." For a brief moment, the hunters hesitated. His defiance was not what they expected. But then one stepped closer, weapon raised, and from the basement below, a faint cry escaped, Cale's voice weak but clear. The hunters froze, turning their heads toward the sound. Daniel's blood turned to ice. He knew the danger had just doubled. The secret was out, and the first true threat had begun. The house was no longer quiet. It shook with heavy steps. Armored, hunters spread across the small rooms. Their weapons glowed faintly, scanning shadows. Daniel stood tall, blocking the hatch. His heart raced, but his feet did not move. The baby's cry from below had already betrayed them. The hunters knew. One pointed his weapon at the floor, the glow marking the basement as a target. "Step aside, human," the leader hissed. "We will take them. You will live if you obey." Daniel's fists tightened. "I said no. You'll have to kill me first." The leader raised his weapon, but before he fired, a voice called from the street outside. "Hold!" Everyone froze. Another group of guards entered. Different armor. Darker. Sharper. The leader growled, but lowered his gun. These new arrivals carried the mark of the lords themselves. The captain of the new group scanned Daniel with cold eyes. "We report back, not waste time, seal the area, they cannot escape." His voice was cruel. "Commanding." The hunters obeyed, spreading into the street, their boots echoing like war drums. Daniel felt his throat dry. There was no escape now. Not through the front, not through the back. When the guards finally left to prepare their trap, outside, Daniel rushed to the basement and opened the hatch. Lyra sat trembling, clutching Cale tight, her eyes wide with terror. "They know," Daniel said quickly. "They'll surround the house. We can't stay here." Her hands shook. "Then, what do we do?" Daniel thought fast. He had no weapons, no soldiers, only his mind and his home. He looked around and an idea began to form. It was desperate, but it might work. "We fight back," he said, his voice low but strong. Lyra stared at him, shocked. "You cannot fight hunters. They are trained, armed, they kill without thought." Daniel's eyes hardened. "I can't fight like them, but I can outsmart them. Humans have tricks they don't expect." For the first time, Lyra saw something more than kindness in him. She saw fire, determination that even fear could not break. Through the day, Daniel prepared. He moved furniture, blocked windows, tied ropes, and scattered sharp tools across hidden corners. He filled bottles with oil, set them near the fire, and sharpened his old farming blade. It was not much, but it was something. Cale watched him with wide, glowing eyes. His tiny hands reached out as if sensing the storm coming. Daniel paused once, looking at the baby, and whispered, "Don't worry. I'll keep you safe." As night fell, the hunters returned. Shadows moved outside the windows, their voices echoed. "Surround the house, no one leaves alive." Daniel pressed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. Lyra crouched with Cale in the basement again, tears in her eyes. She whispered, "Why risk your life for us? We are not even your kind." Daniel looked at her, his voice firm. Because it's the right thing to do, because no one else will stand for you, and because his eyes softened. I can't watch a child be taken to die, not while I can still fight. Her heart trembled at his words. She held Cale close, whispering in her own tongue, a blessing for the man who had chosen to protect them. Then the attack began. The front door crashed open. Hunters stormed inside. Their armor gleamed in the firelight. But Daniel was ready. As the first stepped in, a rope snapped, pulling a shelf down. The heavy wood smashed against the hunter, knocking him to the ground. Another rushed forward, but slipped on oil Daniel had poured across the floor. He fell hard, his weapon clattering away. Daniel grabbed his farming blade, swinging with all his strength, sparks flying as metal clashed against armor. The hunters cursed, surprised by the resistance. They were used to fear, not defiance, but Daniel's traps kept slowing them. A bottle of oil hit the fire. Flames roared high, filling the room with smoke. Outside, shouts rose. The human resists. Bring more. Daniel fought with everything he had, blood on his hands, lungs burning from smoke. But still he stood, his body a wall between the hunters and the basement. Lyra listened from below, every crash above cutting into her heart. She wanted to scream, to run to help him. But she knew if she left, Kyle would be exposed. All she could do was pray Daniel survived. The baby cried, his glowing marks pulsing brighter with every sound of danger. Lyra rocked him, whispering, "Stay strong, little one, stay strong like him." Upstairs, Daniel was pushed back, 3 hunters surrounding him. His traps almost gone, his blade chipped, sweat ran into his eyes, his chest heaved. But his spirit did not break. The leader stepped forward, visor glowing red. "Enough games, human, you cannot win. Stand down and we will make your death quick." Daniel spit blood onto the floor, raising his blade one more time. "You'll have to earn it." The hunters lunged. But before the clash could end him, a strange sound echoed. Deep, powerful, not from the house, but from the baby below. Cale's cry turned into a low hum. His glowing marks lit brighter, shining through the cracks of the wooden floor. The hunters froze, their visors flashing as their devices went wild. "What is this?" one shouted, stepping back. Daniel blinked in shock, the light spilling into the room like starlight. Lyra gasped from below, holding her child as his small body glowed with power she never expected so soon. The hunters hesitated, fear flashing. Even in their cold movements, they had wanted to capture a helpless child. But now they saw something else, something they did not understand. Daniel tightened his grip on the blade, his voice steady. "He's not helpless, and neither am I." The bond between man, mother, and child had just begun to show its true strength, and the hunters realized for the first time they might not be the hunters anymore. The glow from Cale's tiny body filled the room like starlight. The hunters stumbled back, their weapons shaking. For a brief moment, silence fell, broken only by the strange hum rising from the child below. Daniel's chest heaved, sweat dripping down his face. He tightened his grip on his broken blade, but his eyes never left the hunters. "You see him now, don't you?" he said, his voice rough but steady. "He's just a child, but even you fear him." The leader hissed, visor glowing red. "He is not a child. He is a threat. The lords will never allow him to live." Daniel stepped forward, his body shaking, but his voice strong. "Then they'll have to come through me first." The hunters hesitated, but outside more voices shouted. More boots thudded on the street. The house was surrounded. Daniel knew it. He had bought time, but not safety. He rushed to the basement hatch, opening it quickly. Lyra's face looked up, pale and terrified. Cale's glow slowly fading as he settled against her chest. "We can't stay here," Daniel whispered. "They'll burn the house if they can't take you." Her lips trembled. "Then let me go, please, Daniel. If I surrender, maybe they'll let you live." Daniel shook his head firmly. "Don't say that. You know what they'll do. They won't spare you, and they won't spare him. If you step out there, it's the end." Tears streamed down her face. "Then what choice do we have?" Daniel hesitated, his jaw tight. He had never been a soldier, never a fighter. He was just a man with a small house on the edge of town, and yet now he was being forced to make choices men of war had to make. His eyes flickered toward the back wall of the basement. He remembered the old tunnel his grandfather had dug long ago, a forgotten path that led to the river. It was narrow, unstable, but it might give them a chance. He whispered urgently, "There's a way, but it's dangerous. You'll have to trust me." Lyra nodded, her hands shaking as she clutched Cale tighter. Daniel guided them into the tunnel, handing her a small lantern. The wood above creaked as hunters stomped around the floor, searching, shouting. Daniel whispered, "Go, I'll hold them here." "Bye, you time?" Lyra froze. "No, you can't stay. They'll kill you." Daniel gave her a faint smile, though his eyes were filled with exhaustion. "Someone has to slow them down. If we all go, they'll catch us before we reach the river, but if I stay, maybe you'll have a chance." Her voice broke. "Why would you give your life for us? We are not even your people." Daniel looked at her and then at the glowing child in her arms. His words came slowly but firmly. "Because humanity means more than blood. Because no one should face this kind of cruelty alone. And because I can't look at that child and let him die." Lyra's tears fell freely. Her hands trembled as she touched his arm. "Then promise me you will try to live. Promise me you will not throw your life away too easily." Daniel's lips curved in a faint smile. "I'll promise this. I'll fight until I can't anymore." With that, he pushed her gently into the tunnel, closing the hatch above her. His heart pounded as he heard the hunters outside shouting orders. "Set fire to the house," one barked. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He rushed to grab the bottles of oil he had left, setting his final traps. The walls shook as torches smashed through the windows. Flames spread quickly, smoke filled the air. The door burst open, hunters storming in. Their visors glowed through the smoke. Weapons aimed. The leader raised his voice. "This is your last chance, human. Give them up and you will be spared." Daniel coughed, choking on smoke, but his voice was still steady. "I already made my choice." And then he lit the last bottle, hurling it into the fire. The explosion roared, flames bursting through the room. Hunters staggered, blinded by smoke and fire. Daniel charged, swinging his blade with desperate strength. He fought not to win, but to buy every second he could. Every moment was another step Lyra and Cale could take through the tunnel. Every strike was a promise that he would not let them be taken easily. Outside, the neighbors began to gather, watching. The house burned, some whispered in fear, others in awe. A human standing against the Lord's hunters was unheard of. Inside, Daniel's body screamed with pain, but his spirit did not break. He knew he might not leave the flames alive, but he also knew something else. He had chosen, and that choice was worth everything. Far below in the dark tunnel, Lyra held. Kyle closed, listening to the distant roar of fire above. Her tears fell onto the baby's glowing skin. She whispered, "He chose us. He chose you. Remember this, my son. A human gave everything so you could live." Kyle stirred, his tiny fingers gripping her tightly. His faint glow shimmered in the dark, not of fear, but of something new, hope. And though the flames rose high above, Daniel's voice echoed in Lyra's memory, strong and unbroken. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me." Smoke rose into the night sky, black and heavy. The small town gathered in the street, their faces pale as Daniel's house burned. Some whispered that no man could survive inside. Others whispered that no one dared defy the hunters and live. But inside those flames, Daniel still fought. His lungs burned, his arms weak. Yet his spirit refused to break. Every second he kept the hunters back was another second for Lyra and Cale to move farther down the hidden tunnel. The leader of the hunters cursed loudly. "This human wastes our time. Kill him and search the ground." Daniel swung his blade again, sparks flying as it clashed against alien steel. His vision blurred, his body bruised. But in his mind, one thought kept him standing. They must escape. They must live, at last. The hunters pushed him down, pinning him against the burning floor. The leader raised his weapon, visor glowing red. "You die in vain, human, the child will be ours." But before he could strike, a loud shout came from outside. "Enough!" The hunters turned, startled. The townsfolk had gathered, not just to watch, but to act. Men and women carried tools, stones, even old rifles. Their faces burned with anger. One of them stepped forward. Mark, the neighbor who had warned Daniel. Earlier his voice shook but was loud. "You will not take him, you will not take her, not from our town." The hunters laughed coldly. "You dare oppose the lords? You are weak farmers. You will die like him." But the crowd did not move away. More people stepped forward. A wall of humans stood in the firelight side by side. For the first time, the hunters realized Daniel was not alone. Daniel used the moment to rise, blood dripping from his face. His voice was hoarse but strong. "You see, this is what you don't understand. Humans don't stand alone, we stand together." The hunters hesitated. Their orders had been clear: capture the mother and child, but fighting a whole town would draw more attention than they wanted. The empire thrived on fear, not rebellion. The leader growled, signaling retreat. "This is not finished," he hissed. "We will return with more." With that, the hunters pulled back, disappearing into the smoke-filled night. The crowd rushed into the burning house, pulling Daniel out before the roof collapsed. He collapsed on the street, coughing, his body broken but his spirit alive. People gathered around, some holding his hands, others whispering words of courage. "Where are they?" Daniel rasped, his eyes searching desperately. For a moment, no one answered. Then, from the shadows at the far end of the street, a weak figure appeared. Lyra, carrying Cale in her arms. Her face was streaked with tears, her body trembling, but they were alive. The crowd gasped. Some stepped back in fear at the sight of the glowing child, but others stepped forward with awe, whispering, "The star-marked, and the human who saved them." Lyra knelt beside Daniel, tears falling onto his hand. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You gave us life." Daniel coughed, forcing a faint smile. "I told you. They'd have to go through me." His eyes softened as they rested on Cale. The baby's small hand reached out, glowing faintly, gripping Daniel's finger once again. For a moment, time stood still. The baby's glow spread softly across Daniel's battered body. It was warm, almost healing. The people around them felt it too, a strange calm in the air, like hope itself had taken form. The townsfolk exchanged looks. Many had feared the lords too long, but now they saw something new. Proof that resistance was possible. Proof that kindness could defy cruelty. Mark stepped forward, his voice firm. "If the lords come back, they won't face just one man, they'll face all of us." Others nodded, their eyes burning with the same fire. Daniel looked at them, his voice weak but steady. "Then maybe this isn't the end? Maybe this is the beginning." Lyra bowed her head, her tears falling onto Cale's glowing skin. "My son will grow knowing humans stood for him. My son will grow knowing one man chose mercy instead of fear." The baby made a soft sound, his glow pulsing brighter. And for the first time, Daniel thought he heard a word in that tiny voice. Broken, unfinished, but clear enough to pierce his heart. "Da," Lyra gasped, holding Cale close. Daniel's eyes widened and the crowd fell silent. No one spoke, but everyone knew what they had heard. It was not just a sound. It was the first bond, the first step into a future no lord could stop. The fire. Behind them burned the last of Daniel's home into ashes, but in the ashes stood something stronger. Trust, unity, and the spark of resistance. The hunters would return. Stronger, crueler. But Daniel, Lyra, Cale, and now the whole town were no longer afraid because humanity's light had spread and it would not be extinguished. Not tonight, not ever.